Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today we did a really fun exercise where you get to see me being coached by a personality-driven conversion copywriter, Kira Hug. She's the co-founder of the Copywriter Club and co-host of the Copywriter Club podcast. She helps small business owners craft their personal brand following her signature brand living room framework. I had a lot of fun with this. You're going to have fun. You're going to learn a lot. So let's dive in. Hey, Kira, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to chat. So let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure. So I am a copywriter and a marketer. Specifically, I'm a personality-driven conversion copywriter because that sounds like more fun than just being a copywriter. And I also run a community of copywriters called the Copywriter Club, where I co-host a podcast and also have built out different training programs and memberships for copywriters. So I love hanging out with copywriters, can't get sick of them, and love helping them build their business.
What's a personality-driven conversion copywriter?
Right. So I focus on helping my clients figure out their unique personality, their brand personality, because what I found is so many of them struggle with that piece, that it's hard to talk about how do we improve conversions, how do we build trust, if we don't figure out the first piece, which is like, who are you and what are you all about? And how can we create a parallel brand online that matches your offline, your day-to-day personality turned up a little bit more.
Turned up a little bit. Okay. So how do we do that?
Or a lot more.
A lot more. Yeah.
So when I'm talking about turning it up, I'm like, I want to see you, Rachel, at an 11 online versus like in our day-to-day, our personality will shine through in different moments. But it's typically like, it's just like, it's there. But when you go online, you want to highlight the eccentricities, what makes you weird, what makes you experiences so that people can get it right away because they don't have time to wait. We want to build that trust so that they can identify with you, identify with your brand. And that's really what's working now in competitive spaces because so many of the markets that we're in as online marketers are so crowded and so loud that if you don't help your clients identify with you and say, oh my gosh, we share this in common, or I really want that too. Like I see that your brand is talking about this value, like that connects with me. So we have to make those quick connections today in order to really be in business, to sales at the end of the day.
So I love this. I actually just had an idea. Why don't you coach me on this and we can figure out what my unique brand personality would be.
Okay, cool. So the way I like to do this is talking through it through your living room. So we all have living rooms. Most of us have living rooms.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk through your figurative living room and kind of start to decorate it and figure out where you fit into that space. And it may trigger ideas for you and your brand that you could pull into your copy, or you could pull into a new photo shoot or colors. So the two of us can walk through it. Let's start with your living room. And so this could be your current living room. If you're like, actually, I spent a lot of time decorating this and putting a lot of effort into my living room, it matches me to a T. It gets a little tricky when you have family members and it's not necessarily all you, it's a blend. So if that doesn't work, you could always think about your dream living room, the Pinterest living room.
That'll probably work best because we've moved every single year the past 10 years, so we don't get that settled.
Exactly. And mine is boxes still from when we moved here 2 years ago. So I'm like, that does not represent me. So let's just work on your dream living room and talk through the concepts there.
Yeah.
So the first piece I'd want to start with is you at the center of it. How are you moving through showing up in your own living room space when you're hosting a party? And if a party is not your scene, you're like, I'm like, for some people, it's like, I don't want to host 20 people in my living room. It could be more intimate. It could be smaller. It could be 3 of your dream clients, right? Or 3 best friends, and much
As long as I can be in bed by 8 o'clock, then we're good with a party.
it could be daytime. Daytime is cool, any time of day. So
Yeah.
when you're in that space, for you, is it a lot of people or is it more intimate?
No, totally more intimate.
Okay, so more intimate. So when you're hosting, then I would want to know, if you were my client, like, what is your hosting style? How do you treat people when they're in your living room as your guest? Are you the one who's just like serving drinks? Are you kind of anxious? Are you hiding in the kitchen? Are you telling jokes?
They are my best friend, and we're joking. We're having fun. It's super chill. We're probably all wearing yoga pants, drinking wine, eating cheese and chocolate.
Okay, nice. So yoga pants, so more casual, comfortable. Like that would be really important, definitely, as you think about brand images and making sure it matches there.
Yep.
And so how do you interact with them? Is it like smaller conversations? Is it the group talking about hot topics or the news? What would the flow of conversation look like?
Definitely not the news and hot topics.
Yeah.
No, more just like fun, maybe aspirational, planning travel and like fun stuff like that.
Okay, so that would help me figure out, again, as like the copywriter working with you, and for you to figure out, so maybe we focus on more aspirational messaging and talking more about life goals, dreams, travel, more lifestyle, and not necessarily jumping into current events or like what's happening right now outside the community that's stressing you out, right? So we might skip over that. So that's really helpful. And then
there might also be like a child running in and out, jumping up on a boob, that kind of thing.
So very child friendly. And that could pop up too, whether it's again in like the imagery that you do include those images, which is, we can all make that decision for ourselves. But also in the copy, right? As you're writing email copy to your list, it could be in an aside comment in parentheses where you comment on like the fact that your child just ran into the room and started screaming. It could be an aside comment in any email, even in sales emails, just to bring in your personal life so it doesn't feel like it's just business all the time.
Yeah.
So as I'm thinking about you and where you are in the space, I'd also want to pull in kind of more of a toast. So if you were to give a toast to the room, again, to your close friends, and maybe you're not going to see them for a year because you're going to travel, what would be part of that toast? And what would you want to cover? What's really important for you to share with the people that you care about the most? And again, we're thinking about this in terms of like best friends because it's easier, but ultimately some of these messages could translate to dream clients too.
Gratitude. Gratitude for them, for the life that we have. And like toasting to the future and that the best is yet to come.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So more like, again, like aspirational vibe would be really helpful to weave that in. Yeah. And then I'd also want to know, what your voice sounds like. Again, it sounds like it's kind of a very comfortable setting and an intimate setting. So maybe with the copy, it wouldn't be as many loud, bold exclamations. I wouldn't necessarily use all caps in the copy because it does feel like it feels more chill than that. But for you, is it more like whispering softer tones when you speak to people, or is it more like...
No, I'm typically really loud.
Okay, so maybe it would be, there might be more caps.
I'm loud and excited, yeah.
Okay, so if it's excited and loud, then that's where I'd want to pull in like definitely maybe even more color, more caps, bolder expressions throughout the copy to mimic that. Otherwise, it might not match where people actually meet you or listen to your podcast and like, that tone is totally off. So I think that's really important just to think about what that actually sounds like. And again, it could be slightly different. It's okay to turn it up. I mean, I'm not necessarily super loud in person, but my copy is because it's me at an 11. Right. So those are just intentional decisions you can make in your own copy and brand as you think about it.
Yeah.
And then I would also want to move on and start to think about your guests. And so this is where the levels of awareness come into play, which we talk about as marketers. You may have already taught your audience about the different levels of awareness, but really it's trying to understand where your audience is and how well they know about you and your solution, your business, your offer. And so that's a really key part before creating any message and writing any copy, is to understand how well they know you, because that will determine how you speak to them. So we could look at it in terms of the living room, like where do all of these ideal clients fall right now, your audience typically? And this is where we have to be really honest and realistic too, because they may not all be our best friends and the ones who are in the living room telling everyone how awesome you are and how awesome your services are, or your products are. They may not be at that level yet. You may have some people there, but you may find that if you really audit and think about your current audience, that a lot of them maybe don't know about you. And maybe they're the people walking past your house, not even showing up in the living room, because they have no idea that you're in there. They have no idea that they have a problem. They have no idea that you could offer a solution to their problem. And then like in the middle there are people who maybe were told, that there's someone who can solve all their problems, or at least like this one specific problem in this living room. They should go to that living room and that they can get their problem solved. So those are more like problem aware audience members, where they're showing up to your party and they're like, cool, like, tell me more. I've got this problem. How are you going to fix it? So auditing where they fall and like thinking about it in terms of circles, how close they are to you and how far they are extending out where they don't know you, will be really helpful when you start to think about how to show up and how to speak to them.
Got it. Speaking of babies, one just woke up from a nap. So hold on.
Sure.
One second. So speaking of my living room, this is kind of what happens, like a baby will just come in and pop in and then join the party. And
guest appearances.
We have guest appearances all the time. It's either this one or the older one.
She kind of looks like just like the dazed, I just woke up from a nap. Like, what is going on? Who is this person on the screen that you're talking to?
Just woke up from a nap. Eve, est-ce que tu peux la prendre, s'il te plaît? So we have help, which is great. À tout à l'heure. Oh,
it's like, but I wanted to be in the interview.
I know. But you know what? She's only going to be chill for like a minute. And then she's like, I want your microphone and give it to me now.
Oh my gosh.
It's too much of a distraction. So you got to see her and we got to say hi.
Yes.
Okay. Continue. Let's go. You're doing great.
So the next piece is, for me, the fun piece, but it's really analyzing the space, the decor in the living room. And this is where, again, if you are more visual, if you lean into this creative side, this could be really fun, but everyone can do it. And so I would want to know like what furniture styles. This is where if I'm working with a client, I want them to actually create a Pinterest board where they are pinning what type of furniture is in there. What does the lighting look like? What type of colors? What's the color palette? And we put together this ideal dream living room with those little details, again, down to like, what food are you serving? What drinks are there? And what is the overall feeling and the artwork on the wall. And so those details can show up in different ways. And it doesn't have to just be in your brand photography, although it can definitely guide that, but it can show up in the copy, because if there's certain like spot colors that show up in your living room, I'd want to pull those into the copy so that we could accentuate and highlight any important information in a sales email with that spot color. So for you, what would that be like? Do you have a general color palette that you're drawn to for a living room, or a
Moroccan style is like, I'm like minimalist Moroccan style. Like we had our wedding in Morocco, and like that's kind of our brand colors, is like the red and the black and the gold, and yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so more minimalist. And then are there any textures that really stand out?
What do we use? I like sparkly gold.
Okay.
Yeah.
But more minimal vibe. And then as far as actual lighting in the room, what is the lighting generally?
Not junk light. Like dim. I don't know, like regular light.
Regular light.
If
So
we had Moroccan lanterns, that would be amazing. So like when we're decorating our dream house and I'm like thinking, cause we're going to build a house here and I'm
oh,
like,
cool.
oh, we're going to have like Moroccan lights and it's going to be awesome.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, but like, it seems like maybe more dim lighting, maybe like more, rather than like bright, huge windows. So I'd want to know if the windows are huge.
Ooh, I would love to have floor to ceiling windows with natural light.
Okay, natural light.
Yeah.
So this will kind of start to shape again, like the way you lay out the copy on a landing page or in an email. Is it more simple and minimal, and you have two different white columns on the side of your copy in the center of the page, so it's really easy to read and it feels simple? Or do you have more happening there, like with more textures and more images throughout to draw your eye down the page? So those details can start to pop up too as you're pulling together this living room and the details of it.
Yeah.
And then also we want to talk about what's going on. The last piece is like what's going on outside of your living room. And this is where it's important to really nail the setting, because yes, it's important what you're doing, how you're treating your guests and your audience. But it's also important to think about like, what are they all bringing into your living room when they show up? Are they bringing in stress? Are they stressed out about something that's happening in their lives? They're stressed out about something happening in their community or on more of a global scale. And so this is where I'd want to really analyze your audience and think about what are they thinking about right now? And this can change. So this is something you can't just review it once a year. But if you're sending out emails frequently and nurturing your audience, you could revisit it, at least once a month to understand how are they doing, especially considering the past year and how we've all adapted to the pandemic. Where is your audience? Are they global or are they associated in like certain region of the world? So you can speak to how they're feeling and what they're taking in and what they're bringing into your party when they're showing up and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted because of this thing that's happening to me. So that's a key piece of it. And then of course there's like the fun, lighter element of just like pop culture and understanding, what are you playing? Like what music is playing in your living room? What if you happen to flip on TV or a show or Netflix or whatever you watch, like what is happening pop culture wise? And also not just like what's happening pop culture wise, but what are you drawn to? So just knowing those pop culture references of like what you're watching, what you're paying attention to, so that we can make those connections with your audience. And again, they can say like, oh, wow, that's something that really connects to me or speaks to me or makes me want that, or at least allows me to feel like you get me and you get what I'm dealing with. Because oftentimes we ignore all those outside references and pop culture and current events and can't kind of connect to where people are today. So that's kind of the last piece as you're thinking about what's happening inside, think about what's happening outside.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Okay. So as you listened to like me being coached, I hope everyone has been taking notes and you can easily apply that to yourself and to your own business, because that is so good. What are some mistakes that you see people make when they try to implement this?
I think the biggest mistake that I see in general across the board is just, this is probably won't be surprising, but it's just toning it down and feeling like, especially if you come from more of a corporate background, feeling like you have to sound a certain way in order to be professional, in order to be respected in the space. And I think it takes a lot of work. Sometimes it takes working with someone who can pull out who you really are and what you sound like, so you can shed that corporate veneer. So that's the biggest one that we kind of pull in. Or part of it too today, again, because we're often in crowded spaces where we are paying attention to competitors, which is smart to do, and competitors can be friends, is that we feel like we should sound like somebody else who's doing really well in our space, in our niche. Some of the more popular people who have grown great businesses in our space. So we try to kind of mimic, and we don't even do it intentionally. I don't think it's like, I want to steal this person's voice. It's just, it happens over time if we're paying too much attention to what other people are doing and we start to lose our voice. The last piece is the self-judgment too of, of almost being critical of what our personality might be like. You know, if you're saying where you prefer more intimate spaces and you are like the loud, excited one, if there's judgment there where you're like, but I don't want to be the loud, excited one. I want to be the funny one. So I think part of it is just trying to be really honest about how you show up, because people resonate with that so much more. And even if it's not always positive, like if there are little details where it's like, well, I can be really snarky, or like I can be really sarcastic, but I feel like that's not positive. So I don't want to bring out that side of myself. Actually, people do like that. The right people, the right audience want you to be snarky or sarcastic. Recently, I worked with a copywriter who was told by a coach to be really nice, and that her brand would do better if she kind of spoke and maybe dumbed herself down and then was really nice in all of her social media posts. And after a while, she did that and she was like, that is so not me. People think that I'm like this really sweet girl. And she's like, I'm not a bad person, but I'm also have this edge that I've been hiding for a while. And it started to affect her business. So I think as long as we're not afraid of kind of the darker side of who we are, the less glamorous side of who we are, and we bring that to the forefront too, to be more holistic, people will resonate with you and you'll connect with the right people.
Totally. I had a branding expert tell me not to mention my faith at all. And she was like, you don't want to like offend people. And I was like, sorry, I'm not going to listen to you.
You're like, bye, I'm done.
Bye.
I think that's what was happening for a while, and we're moving away from it generally, where it's like, we were trying to fit into these boxes and not mention certain things that we feel like shouldn't be talked about. And now that no longer works because people pick up on it, and they can tell like, well, you're not talking about what you actually care about, or like, who are you really if you can't talk about your faith? And so, yes, I think there's a lot of bad advice out there, but ultimately if someone tells you not to do or be who you are in your branding and marketing,
it's a problem.
It's probably a red flag.
Yeah. So when we do this and we put ourselves out there boldly, we're going to get people who judge us or criticize us, or we're going to get some kind of pushback. How do we deal with that aspect of it?
Yeah, I think it's part of what we're all signing up for, right? If you decide today, or, you know, you've decided a long time ago, I want to be my full bold self. And again, it might not even be that you're bold, might not be the personality, but I want to be my full self, that you will definitely lose people. And that's also okay, because again, you will draw in the right people who love you and respect you and want to hear more about all the details of your business and your life. And so I think that's definitely an okay way to proceed. I know my brand doesn't resonate with everybody, and I'm okay with that, because it definitely resonates with the right people and helped my business grow as soon as I really embraced it. So I think it's just acceptance that you can't be liked by everyone. It's okay. It's hard for people pleasers. Like, I'm a people pleaser. It's hard to know that and accept it, but over time you could practice and it'll get easier.
Yeah. I like thinking attract and repel. So like I've posted things about my faith inside of our Facebook group. We have like, I think 13,000 people inside of our Facebook group. And I had someone get really pissed and leave a nasty comment. And I was like, you might not be my person, and that's okay. Like, I hope you find what you're looking for. And I think back when I first started my business, like a decade ago, that probably would have crushed me. And I would have been so upset of like, oh my gosh, she doesn't like me. And now I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to be all things to all people.
And the cool thing too, is that the more facets of yourself that you share, the more opportunities you do give people to connect with you in different ways. So they're like, if you're sharing details about your faith, and that maybe that doesn't connect with certain audience members, they get it, but they're like, cool. But then you talk the next day about an experience with your family that they relate to because they also have kids. Then they like, you pull them in there. And so I think the key is, if this is important to you, is to like share multiple elements of your life, because there's not just one thing that represents you. There's hundreds, thousands, millions of little details that make you who you are. And oftentimes our marketing feels very flat, and we're just showing up with one characteristic or one trait front and center. And we're not allowing people to kind of come into our world in different ways to talk about different things, even if we don't connect 100% on everything we're doing in our lives.
Yep.
It creates an opportunity to connect with more people if that's really important to you, which of course it's important to many of us who are building businesses.
Yep, for sure. What's one of the best books you've read?
So many. I'm going to share this one I'm currently in, Run to Win. Lessons in Leadership for Women Changing the World by the president of Emily's List, Stephanie Shriak. Hopefully I'm pronouncing her name right. That's what I'm reading now. And then of course I have to squeeze into The Future We Choose, Surviving the Climate Crisis. And that's one that I did finish, and it just kind of blew my mind and helped me feel in control and like I can make a difference in a space where oftentimes we feel like we have very little control. And so it was very inspiring and action oriented.
I love that. Like here in Senegal, the beaches are disappearing and there's like plastic and garbage everywhere. Like if I took you, I can walk to the beach from our house and it's just like covered in plastic and garbage. And it's, oh my gosh, it's awful. Like seeing it right there in front of my face. And I'm like, what the heck can I do?
And the scary part is where like areas in the world and areas where, you know, I'm currently living where it's like, it's not necessarily front and center. So people are in denial and they don't see it on a daily basis. And so they're like, well, but what's the problem? Things are fine here. I'm like, no, they're not.
No. Come here where the beaches have like literally disappeared in some parts. Like it's crazy. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
To me, it means stopping the stress around feeling like we have to do this big, gigantic thing to make an impact, and starting to think more immediate, more local, more micro, like what can I do here today? And I know a lot of this like starts in your household, right? You can always make changes in your household to make an impact. And I believe that's important. But you can also look outside to your community, like what could help change your community. Otherwise, at least for me, I start to feel really overwhelmed if it's not this huge undertaking.
Yeah, I love that. Where can we connect with you?
You can connect with me at thecopywriterclub.com. If you are a marketer, you're welcome. You don't have to be a copywriter, and check out our podcast and resources there.
Cool. Amazing. Kira, thank you so much for going through your framework with me. That was super fun. And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to see your living room as you build out your dream living room.
Yeah.